Let's let them start. I'm just wondering how we're selecting the. So, it's possible. Could be. Yeah, and the other thing that we really
should start having the state look at buying a
FLCC athletics with 80 contracted student athletes competing across 14 inter past has been a little underserved when it comes to targeting their interests. And now we do. And it's going very well. So we play video games. National Intercollegiate organized under the NJCAA-E, the esports branch of the NJCAA, and the SUNY-E, the SUNY Esports Athletic Conference. We have 14 organized teams and programs. Valorant, Overwatch, Rainbow Six Siege, Rocket League, Fortnite. You don't have to recognize any of these. That's okay. Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, FIFA, Soccer, NBA 2K, and more. All competing in these support staff. We run this entire program with 2 part-time positions, myself and assistant coach Burdock Broughton. In addition to running multiple practices and matches 6 days a week. Evening, you will see our Smash Brothers program operating an intramural this evening out there surrounded by the carts. If you have walked by the student lounge at any other time during the day, generally between the hours of 11 and 2, you'll see them there. They are visible, they are there, and we cannot get rid of them. So might as well work with that. We have a ton of engagement and retention data in the packet. I'm going to spare you that right now. But again, wonderful reading. Hope that you take a look at that. But as the agenda says, we've been brought here to talk about our Reboot academic support camp. Reboot came about when we started to look around at other athletic camps that were being offered over the summer sessions. We realized that our students didn't need to learn how to play video games better. That really wasn't the problem for us. There was other greater needs underneath that really needed to be resolved first before we approached our students on improving in-game performance. So we bounced around some ideas, took an initiative, and made something up. So this is also contained within with the packets that we just handed out now, and also in the master packet that you have received earlier. academic reboot camp. We observed that FLCC sports students in general, lack specific life skills, study skills, and interpersonal communication skills that impeded their student success in both personal lives and academic programs. There was something getting in the way, deeper, foundational, underneath everything else that was happening. So the objective was to provide a week-long crash course in adulting, as we say. Because socioculturally, we make assumptions that our incoming students are already pre-equipped with a certain amount of tools in the toolbox. And that we build our courses, our structures, our offices, everything around those cultural cores. But if we've learned anything over the last few years, it's that the foundation for these cultural cores have been shaken. And the assumptions that we are now making about the skill set that our students are bringing into the campus are lacking. And that disconnect continues to grow. So what we decided to do is we created Reboot. We made it open and available to all incoming and current FLCC students, regardless of academic program, regardless of affiliation with FLCC esports or FLCC athletics. We took everybody and anybody. And we ran this the week before classes started this August, opening days week. And the idea being that nobody can stand me yelling at them for 5 days straight. So we would bring in additional people with the right kind of life skills to give personal experiences to our students so that at least when they come here, they will have made pre-existing connections to the administration, the faculty, the staff, the members here at the college. Next slide, please. Oh, I have the clicker, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
I do not have a clicker.
Mm.
I do not have a clicker. There we go. So we brought in Dr. Robert Nye, which is most likely the reason why I'm here today. We brought in Professor Cassie Kent, Dr. Samantha Boccacino, Coach Sean Marin, Dr. Trista Merrill, Professor Isaac Grooms, Professor Burdock Broughton, and Teresa Danis and Sarah Izzard from the Student Wellbeing Office. And each day we bombarded our students with perspectives and offices and people, the people that they would most likely be interfacing here at Finger Lakes Community College. And we had them focus on these topics: perspective, focus, and self-control, communication strategies and protocols, physical and mental organization, emotional intelligence and management, success, failure, morale, and goal setting, physical and mental health with self-care, campus offices and support services, as in I walked them there myself, put them in front of the door and said, you go here. And then college organization structure and culture, because many of our first generation or even GAP students that do not understand the culture of how college works, this is an opportunity for them to learn it. And then finally, next slide, please. Where are we operational?
It probably works. It always hiccups the first time.
Oh, it always, yeah, I understand that.
Well, not that time.
Not that time, but it's okay. If you take a look at the next page on your packets, there we go. In your email, you will see links to the complete program agenda and schedule, which I've made public, all 5 days. Every hour, every minute of every day, we have an agenda and a schedule. We also have photo galleries on our website, including every photo and video from Reboot and other activities that we have done here. If you want to see what we did or learn more about how we did it, it's open and available. Please click the links. We have an events playlist via YouTube. If you want to see YouTube videos of what we did and how we did it, we made those. And then finally, program compilation videos and our homepage. So after this meeting, if you want to learn more about what we do and how we do it, there it is. No secrets. And then finally, one more slide, because this is what really matters more than anything else. This is what happened. And some of you were there for it. So ultimately, Reboot was an opportunity for students to learn about how to college, how to adult, how to life, because the time I spent with philosophical tinkering about the certain mindsets required for effective goal setting were immediately superseded by how do I do dishes? And how do I do my laundry? And you realize that there's a different type of skill set that needs to be addressed. So with Reboot, we did a little bit of everything. We had about 28 students sign up, 24 attended faithfully around their work schedules and other home schedules, students in the suites, students commuting here. And the feedback that we have received has been mostly positive. I think as positive as we could probably ask for from such an endeavor. But we are looking forward to engaging this again in August of next year, maybe a mini one in January. It depends on what's left of my sanity by that point. But we're hoping to continue it along. So Frankie, Braden, come on up here. You're done with me. You don't need any more of me. You need them. Because Frankie has been with us for several years. COVID in between makes things weird. Braden is new with us here this semester, but both attended Reboot. Both are on the student leadership board of FLCC Esports, and they can tell you things better than I can. Does anybody have any questions?
Both of you. I was so glad to see that life skills are also being taught along with preschool, because you have to communicate with people, not just send iPads or whatever you use. What has been the most valuable thing that you can take from this?
I would say the friendships of it during Reboot Week and the skills that I had learned from most people that came in and talked to us. Dr. Nye's speech to us was the most memorable one to myself, but I came here not expecting much from it, but within like a day or two, I'd already made like the friendships I still have as a current, I'm still new, but they're people I still talk to every day.
I think for me, kind of like how I've always said, is this program kind of feels like a family. So it's like whenever you bring new people in, like the big thing that you do is like you welcome them in, you introduce them to like everyone. And because we spend so much time with each other all the time, we can help a lot of the new students get more accumulated into like what we do, not just in the program, but in classes and college in general. And it helps a lot, like how we were saying with teaching these life skills to these incoming students. It gives them like a more personal connection if it's like a friend helping you out versus a professor or a teacher or just something that you're reading on a piece of paper. I think it makes a more impactful impression.
First of all, thank you for being here. We love to hear from the students, and I love your uniforms. Can I ask what you're studying at FLCC?
For me, for the past few semesters, I have been a game design student, but I am changing majors because I've worked with this program for multiple semesters, as Professor Van has mentioned, as a leadership member, as kind of an admin of the program. So I do a lot of organization and a lot of student leadership, making events for the students and everything. So I decided to change my major to business management because I've gotten so much practical experience from it that I see this as a more, a better career, a more clear career path, I should say, than what I was doing before, even though what I was doing was fun.
Right?
I am also a game design major, but I'm more into creative writing than I look full on. So
Thank you.
I don't want you to feel left out, so I have to ask a question. And this is more for my own curiosity than anything else. When you have these competitions, do referees or come in to validate
So
the competition?
usually what happens, we do have spectators. Most of the time they are from our own school. Like I do spectate one of our team's matches every Thursday. A lot of times though, these are live streamed online, these games, and the videos are saved. So if there was any discrepancy, an admin from NJCAAE would most likely watch through that video to see what the incident was, to then, if there was an issue, to go back and resolve it. I think that has happened at least one time in the past. Usually doesn't happen. We're usually pretty good at being good. Mhm.
One last question would be, I noticed that it's predominantly male. Well, it's like, and young men are a bit of a underserved segment of higher education space. Do you see this helping to attract and retain or young men?
Can you rephrase that? I'm still a bit confused on what you're asking.
There's less young men in college
Mm.
than there are young.
Right.
Do you see this as being a way to bring in more young men and keep them in college?
Yes.
I can agree.
Yeah. We have a demographic, I believe it's in the packet, it might be on somewhere else, that it shows that our Whole East program is predominantly male due to most games being originally thought as, oh, this is the male thing, oh, it's shooting, whatever, but Frankie's been here longer than I have and way better at most of these games than I am as well.
Yes, I can say that mainly like Professor Van Etten mentioned earlier, the carts that we put in the lounge a lot of the time, it's something where I think it brings a lot of people in, even those that are kind of outside of the program. Our main goal with a lot of events that we hold, either if it's the daily carts on campus or if it's the tournaments that we hold here in the student lounge, a lot of our purpose from is student retention. A lot of it is to give students an extra reason to want to come to school every day, to want to do good in their classes. And I can say personally for myself, because I have been a student here for a while, even in times where I did wonder, I'm like, is this really like what I should be doing? Like, am I actually meant to be here for college? A lot of times I thought about the program too. It's like, that's something that can give me, like I said, that extra reason to be here, that extra motivation besides just passing my classes. And because I have to pass my classes to continue to be in the program, it kind of works both ways. They keep me doing good in both aspects.
That's what you know.
So I just had a comment. So students that are more successful are ones that are staying on campus for a longer period of time during the day and are normally athletic students. And esports is bringing in a huge number of athletic students and keeping them on campus, making them feel like they're part of something that they need to work for academically as well. And I'd also like to mention that Professor Van Etten, he did a lot during his reboot camp, and I hear it from FLCC esports members that I talked to, but as well as he oversees a Discord, which is essentially, imagine it as like an online talking hub, through like text. And when students need help with something, he points them say, like, thank you, you're putting a lot into this program and caring a lot about the students.
Thank you.
So my question is, it seems that the program has exploded. Students are driving, it's exploded. Where would the two of you like to see this go as student leaders and?
I think for me personally, as someone who has been leadership for a while, it would be nice to see the program grow a little more larger in size, but more importantly, I like to see the new students that come in this semester or the following semesters kind of grow into a position where I am to kind of take my place once I leave. So students that we can also teach these leadership skills to as well, so that it's more of a personal thing, so that when I leave, I know that the program's still in good hands.
About the same as yeah, I want to see it grow and be something bigger and be more recognized throughout our college and throughout more others to be able to be something that's actually full on and big throughout most athletics.
Do you feel that you have the resources to do that?
I mean, we're getting there, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Without further ado, that wraps up our meeting for the Education Planning Committee. I'll take the motion. Is it the meeting?
So moved.
Second. Any objections?
Okay, thank you.
We're gonna move now to the finance and facilities, trustee Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome to the Finance and Facilities Committee. First, we'll take a look back at the October 5th committee meeting. Committee minutes. And we have any comments, questions with regard to the end of last month. Any none? Any none? Move on to our CFO. Welcome, podium Ken. You give us an update with regard to the budget as well as the finance report.
Yeah, so where we are, trying to look at, compared to budget, what I see coming up this year, which is the goal we have right now. And Carol mentioned that we have a decline in FTEs for the fall enrollment. That translates it, so I'm looking at just sort of changes that we see. That translates to about a $250,000 shortfall in the revenue line for the fall semester. Obviously, we don't know what the spring's bringing up, and I don't have an eye for that, but that itself is going to bring us, that will bring us down a little bit on the revenue side. The rest of the revenue looks fairly much in line with last year. It looks in line with the budget, and there's really no other comments on the revenue side. We're obviously, if you flip all the way to the bottom of the page, what we're looking at, what we keep going to is right here, is where are we going to end up from an overall fund balance standpoint for the year? So that's going to depress that a little bit. But taking a look at the at expenses, there is some upside on expenses, at least at this point. I do note that the instructional support is relatively high compared to last year, and that is timing. That's 3 payrolls instead of 2 payrolls for the month of September. Happens a couple of times a year. But we'll back that, but brighten your mind, back that down. But what I do see happening so far this year, I try to look at labor, because we know last year we benefited from reduced labor and reduced benefits, and that did help us out in a big way last year. This year we've got quite a few openings still, and we're going to run positive to plan. Part of the issue, if we were to not hire anybody, which is not practical, we'd be approaching close to $1 million of positive variance there if we don't have any hires throughout the rest of the year. So we can expect, just even if we hired everybody, it's in the pipeline. We're going to have a significant underspend in revenue just because we can't fill people soon enough there. So that's going to mitigate some of the losses down the bottom. So softness on revenue, TBD, what's going to happen this spring, and some more than offset by some positive delayed hiring. What I don't have a sense for is the fringe benefits, and that's something I want to look at. It's much harder for me to look at basically all the other benefits, pension, healthcare, those types of things. Because you notice it's running at 10.16% of budget, but labor is at 11.36. And so I'm hoping that we've over budgeted some on the fringe benefits, and we'll get some positive variance there, like we did last year. We got positive on the fringe last year. We got positive on labor. So I'm hoping that comes through. A little early to give much more indication, but that's kind of where we are. Softness on revenue, positiveness on some of the expense items, target around labor. So I have planned.
Question, CFO. So we have scheduled Thursday, December 1st for a little deeper dive.
That's correct.
It's certainly the committee members that are part of that meeting higher. Welcome to that.
Perfect.
You'll get information on.
Good. Thanks.
Facilities, we'll welcome to the podium. The Director of Facilities, Kathy, welcome, Professor Jim. Both of you.
I'm gonna let Kathy do it.
All right.
I'll get it started and then he'll do it does. All right, I'm here to give a few updates. One is on the master plan. We had interviews on the 24th of October. We had selected 3 consulting firms. We had 3 interviews and we had a lot of discussion in the steering committee, the pros and cons of each. And the committee agreed for a recommendation of Labella Consulting. And that recommendation will go to the Board of Supervisors for a vote. I believe it is November 17th. So just a few highlights associated with those interviews. We had Plan Architecture, who's done a lot of project work for us. And I think the whole committee agreed that they were good, but they really didn't have the master plan background. And we could see that they were really attacking it more of a design plan, and it really isn't that. We had Architectural Resources from Buffalo area. They've done a lot of master plans at a very, very high level. They have some experience, but some of I also called some of their references, and they commented that they tended to be a little too big and they had to be reined in. They had the reality of finances along with we are a community college, and we have to be cognizant of where we are and where we're located and what we do. And then finally, Labella, they are a Rochester firm, and actually Labella was unique in the sense that they were able to provide all of the needs that we needed for a facility plan, i.e. architecture, demographics, et cetera. They didn't have any sub-consultants, and we felt really comfortable and confident with them, and they knew they spent a lot of time of how to do it for FLCC and really followed the RFP and what we were asking. So we felt really good about that. But we'll see what happens. And as I said, we are giving the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors middle of this month. Any questions about that? The nursing phase 3 and the lab renovation, we met Monday. LaChase Construction, the design team, and myself and Tom Harvey, and we looked at the cost estimating associated with the 75% drawings that LaChase were given. And for both projects, we are within the budget that we have, the monies that we are asking for from SUNY, et cetera. Obviously, April 1st is a magic date for New York State to bless that, so we do have the monies. But LaChase did, which I'm not surprised. Ray LaChase did bring up that, costs are hard. They're still not, things are more expensive. Prices are going up. They haven't landed. And of course, in the construction, as we know, when we live through the nursing, it's all about product and material and getting here. So I think we'll be challenged with that this summer, but that's okay. We'll get through that. But I think, that's a continued conversation associated with the design team and LaChase. Any questions about that? Hemlock Hall, this is Honors House moving over. As of today, we have a agreed upon floor plan associated with the concept, and now, you bring the reality in it. So from that point, once I have the floor plan, which I have, Kurt and company have agreed to it, I will start the mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We'll do a high concept design, and then instead of bringing it to a construction firm, which I think I talked about before, it's a small enough and the renovation is not as extreme as I thought it would be, honestly. I will work with some local contractors and get a better pricing so that I can work with Willis and we can see where those dollars are. Yes.
Where is Hemlock Hall going to be again?
It's going to be on the first floor of the library. When you come into that main library entrance on the right, that was added, I think, in 1995. So there are 4 large classrooms there. And then we're also sneaking into that first floor of the library, which is adjacent to that corridor, which I'm happy to, now that I literally just got the floor plan this morning, but I can send that to Penny and Penny give you an idea. I'm happy to share that.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have one. Roughly the budget for the dollar amount that you foresee.
Well, I put in like 400,000 because we didn't have any idea, but honestly, I hate to put a number down because I know what happens.
$500,000 or less.
Oh gosh, yes, $500,000 or less, but I think you're going to be 250 at the most.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually the design is good.
I know you're still working out all the details here, but one of the comments that I used to hear all the time about Honors House was that it had a homey
Yes.
feeling. So is that what you're aiming for again?
Yes, so actually, if you were to go, there's 2 of the classrooms now that are more seminar style, and I know a few sessions ago, Kurt presented on that, but they're very homey. So we brought over some rugs, we brought over some couches. So when you go into those classrooms, you get that experience. And then when we do some of the renovation, yes, they're very much about that. And one of the examples is that hallway that you see now, which is your very VCT hallway kind of, they want a carpet, we're gonna put another door in, so it will definitely be much homier. And, they don't want to turn any of the LED lights on, which they love. They have all the floor lamps and all of those things, so.
Any students are part of that committee that are giving us some direct input since they're the ones that are buying it?
That's a great question. I have only worked with Krista, John, and Kurt. And whether they've gotten some student input, I do not know that. But that's a great question. I will ask that question.
I encourage you.
Sure. I think that's great. And it's prompting me, but I think when you start looking at what we agreed to for the construction, I am really thinking that we will do some self-performance of installing the walls, and there's some things that I think my staff can do, which will help with the costs as well. All right, lastly, as we know, and that kind of leads me into it, my staff does a lot of self-performing, and it's a lot more exciting than changing filters, right? So we try to give them some work. And I believe it was last summer, Jeremy came and had a really good idea. So we are renovating 2 underutilized spaces and doing some consolidation. And actually, we're about halfway done, and we thought we would be getting that done in the winter break. But I will leave it to Jeremy, and he can talk all about his idea, and now it's becoming reality, right? Isn't that great?
Thank you. I didn't prepare for a podium presentation. I figured we'd be sitting in the boardroom a little more casual. So it is nice to see all of you actually in person. I know I've seen many of you before through the magic of WebEx for my work with guided pathways. So it was kind of inspired by some of those guided pathway discussions that we had and taking a deep look into our strategic plan that I was a part of the last one, where we talked about experiential learning as a key component. And our old program in athletic training was an advising area in athletic training, had a significant hands-on component. And any of our students that transferred and stayed with it did very well. The number of students that I have that are currently working in athletic training around the country is pretty significant because they went through. As soon as we kind of started transitioning away from that, when I stopped working as the athletic trainer, and the numbers in the program were always fairly low. They started out with about 20 new freshmen every year. And then we'd get 4, maybe 5 that stayed with it when they realized athletic training involves nights, weekends, holidays, rain, snow. They're like, I don't want to do that. So I knew I needed to revise the program. So the AS kinesiology program is the thing we came up with when we started looking at the learning framework way back when Deb Ortloff came on board. So the kinesiology program had its first semester fall of 2018 and its first graduating class in spring of 2019. So it was a little bit small because we had a lot of the students from the old program just switch into the new one. One of my goals as program coordinator has been to create a learning lab. And at first it was just going to be designed for our students that we were going to have in person. And then pre-COVID, virtual wellness and virtual personal training and things like the Mirror and Peloton got very popular. And that opened up an opportunity to look at it and say, this could be something we could certainly do more with our online. And then COVID happened and the boom in online personal training, online strength and conditioning, online wellness consultants took off and still exists. So this is a perfect time to be able to create a new space or utilize an old space, but repurpose it for something new that literally costs nothing other than moving equipment in. So the entire purpose of our redesign to take those adjunct offices that are down on the second floor by the first aid classroom. I'm sure if you have all played the game of Monopoly, you've probably had lots of family fights, but you try to consolidate your space in an area. So one of those adjunct offices will be a consult room in my office. The other one will be the actual learning lab. And then room 2740, which is currently our first aid room, is going to be in the middle of that. Currently, right now, that does not have high flex capability, but we do utilize 2750 right across the hall. So we don't have to even invest in high flex technology right off the bat. Anything we would do in 2740, we can bring a mobile card in as well. As far as outfitting high flex technology in the Learning Lab, Ryan McCabe has agreed to donate an old 50-inch Apple monitor from the Mac Lab. So we don't even have to spend on technology from that. Everything we're putting in currently is equipment we have right now. I was a little excited when you said $500,000 or less. So that kind of gives me a budget to know what I'm going to work with going down the road. But basically, it can be used for every 200 level class in the kinesiology program. We can partner with every anatomy and physiology class we teach. Bio 110, Bio 171, 172. I have already talked to Maria Petricola, Christy Parker, how we could design activities for that learning space, especially faculty I am aware that will complain about it. I personally love it. I have had some of the best interactions with my students that have no possible way of making it to class. I have 2 students that are professional dancers, one in New York City, one overseas in Belgium. I'm pretty sure trying to get the student in Belgium to my 9 o'clock class here would be a little bit difficult. West Coast, same thing, high flex is tremendous. And the ability to have that technology and now apply it to the Learning Lab will do a significant improvement in their hands-on learning when it comes to the lab. So one of the things we learned in Guided Pathways, as George will attest, is we have to meet our students where they are. This lab will allow me to offer evening sessions. It will allow me to offer weekend sessions. So those students that are currently working full-time can still get the lab opportunity without missing out on work or family obligations. It's perfect timing for me. Both of my kids just moved out this summer and they're in Buffalo. So as an empty nester, I don't feel guilty about being here late at night. But the cool thing is, when I proposed this over the summer, I talked to Deb Ortloff and we had about 45 students in the program. And I was like, oh, sweet, get the Learning Lab. Within 3 years, my goal, talked to Deb yesterday, I'm already at 100 students. Opened up the lab yet. So I did a little happy dance, which thankfully nobody. Because I am all about the competition. So if we have this, I've already talked to University of Rochester. They're developing their own performance lab. We can partner with them. We have a connection down to Ithaca. I have a connection down in Alabama. And we can start with some of those schools, and then we can figure out which SUNY schools we may, not that Alabama sim, so don't get too excited. But there's the opportunities to be able to network with other schools and then have our students start with us and then continue on in four-year programs, even four-year programs that are fully online. There are so many students that look for that, and bachelor's programs don't have that. So we can connect them through a variety of ways. So when this opens, I am happy to walk any and all of you through there at any time. We will probably be looking for volunteers once the classes are up and running, when the students have to do their capstone project, which is basically going to be a wellness assessment, and then they can talk to you about a program design. The opportunities for experiential learning are through the roof. And without Kathy's help and the help of her staff, without the help of Ryan McCabe and Jeff Dugan, this kind of all started because I was like, oh, I need a space, I need a space, I need a space. I got to find a space where I can move the adjuncts so the adjuncts don't feel like they're being kicked out. And then Jeff Dugan goes, you can take the Mac lab. And I was like, wait, what? Okay, let's go. So what initially was told to me as potentially being a 8 to 10 year project, to be able to do it in 4 months is pretty significant. And I have not stopped being excited since Kathy said, yeah, we can do this. So thank you guys for your support. When this was, I know this was discussed in cabinet meetings over the summer to make sure that we had the support, and I am excited to unveil this in the spring. I think for marketing, it is significant. I think for working with our athletes, it is significant. There are so many things that we can do with our athletes as far as performance improvement. And we need to get students, but we also want students on campus. And if we think about the reasons students come to campus, Michael Van Etten gave us one good reason with the esports, our athletics are another. Having a space like this, when athletes are considering going to a community college, nobody else will have what we have. And that can give them an advantage, especially if they're thinking they want to transfer afterwards. So I have a lot more big ideas, but I am sure I am out of time. So I would be happy to talk about those at any point, but I do appreciate it. And if you have any questions.
What's your new goal for students, since you already did it?
Yeah. Like Kathy said, I don't know that I want to give a number, but I do. I want, my goal is within 3 years to be up to 150. And because then at that point, then, I am always reassessing. I know that with SUNY Online ceasing to exist, at least temporarily, I know we have some faculty in my department that teach those sections. So an increase in the number in this program would allow those faculty to then transition into classes within our degree. And we don't necessarily even need to hire new staff right away. So I am trying to do as much as possible with Dr. Nye's zero-sum game idea in mind. And then just like I said, those last few big ticket items, chase some grant opportunities. So Professor Martin, $500 million will do fine. So cash, check, Venmo, whatever.
I appreciate the professor, but you're the professor. Question, yes, please.
I don't know if I'm making this up, but did New York State have something that every school needs an athletic trainer?
Not yet. Not yet. They've only been talking about that since, let's see, I graduated college in '94, and states have been talking about mandating athletic trainers at every school. So that has not happened yet, and for as long as we continue to have budget issues, that will not happen. But in addition to athletic training, the kinesiology program targets personal training, strength and conditioning, physical therapy, exercise physiology. And the program is designed to intentionally be advising heavy, so we can make sure they take the right sequence of courses, the right sequence of electives. I love my wife very much. She teaches in our humanities department. She has an advising load of 15. I have an advising load of 71 in my program, and I want to meet with each and every one of them because each and every one of them has a different goal. And again, the ability to talk to them, I just spent the last 3 weeks in my FYE classes doing individual advising and mapping their plan to make sure they have the right math courses, the right electives, things like that. So we get to 150, that'll be a good problem to have.
Final question? Professor, thank you. Rich, get the final word.
The programs that you are offering, what's the connection between them and industry? And I'm thinking repetitive motion type jobs.
So we can certainly do ergonomic training and injury prevention. That can be accomplished with a certified personal trainer. And that credential, you can take the test after you take the capstone course in the degree program. I'm working on creating my advisory board, and I will have at least 3 members from local businesses. Planet Fitness has expressed interest in partnering and being on the advisory board, and then being an internship location. I'm working on Brownstone Physical Therapy because I have an alumni that works in the Canandaigua office. So I am trying to tap each and every one of those local connections to be able to say, hey, can they come do observations and see what you do related to workplace injury prevention? So ergonomics is a huge component of that.
Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the podium. Chief Matthew, talk about our annual security report and fire safety reports.
Thank you.
Chief. I will say that's quite a robust, hefty packet, what nearly 70 pages.
Not too bad, huh? I'm sure you all spent your Friday evenings reading that. Well, thank you for having me here tonight. Dr. Nye asked me to brief you on the annual security and fire report for 2022, which is actually the statistics for 2021. But the report itself is about 60 pages of information, which is kind of repetitive from year to year. So there's not a lot of new information in there. Some name changes maybe, or some phone number changes are in there. But the first 60 pages are kind of very instructional, informational, and giving definitions, for example. But the actual crime report that we have was reported to the Clery, based on the Clery Act, reported to the State Education Department. This is what we have up here for you. Just to give you the timeline, in the spring semester, we contacted the department heads and asked them for any jurisdictions where students were in a program for our college. They responded back with those jurisdictions. In June of 2021, we sent out, June 2022, we sent out letters to any law enforcement agency that had a student in their jurisdiction. We responded asking for crime statistics on all these categories. They would send us the letter back giving us the information. We recorded the data and placed it into the Clery report. The report was submitted in September, end of September. It was actually due in October. We got it in a little early. It was accepted and it was forwarded to Dr. Nye for his approval. And then from there, we took the entire crime report, including the security report and the fire report, put it into the report that you have, emailed it out to the college community. We made paper copies, had them available in our office and still do. We hand delivered paper copies to all the campus centers. And we also have that posted on the college website. As you see, the numbers for crime are very low. And they're kind of self-explanatory. Are there any questions regarding that? Okay.
The next one?
Yeah,
Sure.
and then this would be the
Just a sec, it'll be just a second.
fire report. Fire safety report. Which was a separate report to the first report. Is about a 5 or 6 page report, but these are the stats. 3 fire drills required by law, and then some incidences of burnt cooking or smoke in the dorms. Yes. Questions?
Thank you.
I am all set if you are all set.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Work. Have a work next.
Thank you, sir.
If I did transfer report. Yeah, CFO account. Share it with your seat right there. Feel
Yeah.
free.
Really, no issue, it's a couple $100 switching budget categories in the same department.
Question, second, transfer report. Seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Rich will move.
Thank you, Rich, second. Thank you. Favor,
Who was second?
second with Joe.
Second. So,
That's your manager.
all right, we'll stand adjourned. We'll give you, 25 minutes to get something quick to eat. Our actual agenda for the next meeting is. Okay, and then now, are we?
You want me to leave the meeting? Just a minute. I'll leave the meeting. Want to leave the meeting?
Are
just-
we- are
No, just a minute. Let me find my mouse here. Sorry.
we muted right
No, I'm finding my mouse. It's on the other screen. Hang on. Just a minute. There we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test, test, test. 1, 2.
Oh, I gotta.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the November 2nd meeting of the Board of Trustees of FLCC. Our first order of business will be community public comment. So if there's somebody at this time that wishes to speak, if they would do so, and if you're watching this via WebEx, you can call in and just identify yourself. All right, not seeing or hearing one, I assume that no one wishes to comment, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Could I have a motion for the consent agenda? Trustee Martin first, trustee Bushman second. All in favor of accepting the agenda, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Are there any noes? No noes recorded. Okay, old business. Is there any old business that needs to be brought to the floor? All right, seeing none, we will go to new business. Any new business? All right. Chair's report, I really don't have anything. I think working up here though, in this room is a much better atmosphere as far as we can spread out more and we can accommodate more people if they would ever like to attend our meetings. Any comments? All right. President's report, Dr. Nye.
Everything's my report. I just want to highlight one thing and then one new activity. In the report, as you heard a little bit earlier today about the SUNY online activities, it's really disappointing and I think it's short-sighted. However, I do think that we were very fortunate to have Ryan McCabe, who we heard talk to you earlier, to be able to talk to you because he was already on track to look at other opportunistic and innovative ways of doing things. So we're a little bit of a step ahead and looking at OPMs to help take the place of SUNY in terms of helping getting our product out into the markets and to do things. So we're going to be working on a simultaneous parallel effort between going alone by ourselves and getting an OPM like Coursera or Wiley or both to help us. And also we need to pursue some extra support to help because we will not have that SUNY support anymore. What's important to know is we're going to have to give up 35% of that revenue anyway all along. So it's no different than we now need to find that support that they were providing us in that manner. The advisors, the SUNY support folks are helping put people into the SUNY online and then helping them when they're there. And I'm confident we can do that, but I think we're very fortunate to have Ryan, who's already at Head Start. So it's either by ourselves or with the consortium with other schools, Alfred State, MCC, Buff State, and some others, depending on how things go, and then potentially both. And I'm not losing sleep at this point in terms of that activity. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then second, not on my report. However, it's been addressed that we were interested in looking at potential in the future of providing some long rifles to our police, campus police in the future. I had a discussion with the governance executive committee today, and generally they were comfortable with that. There are some concerns that some of them will be interested as we move on. But we discussed submitting a resolution in December for a read to allow for public comment either then or January to then support a resolution that would be passed in January to be able to provide approval and funding to provide some long rifle support on campus. And I do believe that is important to give our campus police the equipment they need based on the changing environment and threat to have them feel comfortable to be able to to place themselves in harm's way, that they have the right equipment to do so, to do their job and protect our lives. And so you will see a resolution in December for read only and discussion and a final discussion in January. And then depending on how things go, we'll move from there. That's my report. Unless there are any questions.
Questions for Dr. Nye? All right, on committee and liaison reports, the most important one, of course, is the student one. You provided us with a written one, but what would you like to add something to that?
I'll just go over the
Okay.
report. So November 11th, in honors of Veterans Day, there will be a ceremony at 3 p.m. that you are all invited to. There will be a keynote speaker, Michael Orlando, recommended by Dr. Nye. And also, the 4th annual FLCC Armed Forces formal dinner and dance will be that night at 6 p.m. in the FLCC Cafe in honor, appreciation, and recognition of our military community. And the event is open to the public. There are tickets available, and you can see the link and phone number there if you're interested. I'd also like to add that Thursday, November 10th, Active Minds and our Veterans Association teamed together with Send Silence Tapping is a nationwide mental health installation, an attempt to reach out to those struggling with mental health and remember lives lost to suicide and destigmatize mental health. And there'll be a display outside on the front lawn from 9 to 4, but I believe they changed the times to 12 to 1. On Sun Silence Packing is, as I understand, their display is going to have backpacks on the front lawn with each has a story to tell, and in each backpack, there is also resources for students and veterans to reach out if they need that. I think that's a very important discussion to be had and to offer that in a semi-discreet way, but also display that we got to destigmatize that. Also, I attended the NYCCT online meeting with other student trustees from across the state. And I left a little disappointed in the meeting, but proud to represent FLCC. I learned a lot about online programs at other schools, but I asked the trustees, how do you represent online students? And some of the following responses I received were, since our online students are not advocating for themselves on campus, we do not feel the need to represent them, as well as the majority of our online students are not vaccinated. We feel we do not need to advocate or represent them. I'm proud that FLCC offers a very strong online program, and we connect to our students through programs such as Let's Talk series. And in a technological world, online programs are amazing opportunities for non-traditional students, such as moms or people with careers and other families, or students that just don't have the means to get to campus. And I think it's really important that we recognize those students, and we do a very good job at that. And then lastly, I just wanted to follow up from last month's report. We have lines outside now, as I'm sure you saw coming in, and that's wonderful.
Thank you to Trustee Russell for
thank
utilizing
you.
his help.
Didn't do a thing except made a comment and suddenly the paint showed up and I don't even know where it came from.
Don't ask questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, then we'll move on to Jeff. Do you have a report for audit and?
Nothing to report.
Okay, that's fine. Excellent. Board development. Santa and Donna, do you have anything to report this
The
evening?
report is that we're going to set up a meeting to get ourselves back on track.
Okay, that'll be a nice winter project. Association, Don?
The report is in the packet.
Okay, any questions for Don on his report that was in the packet? All right. Foundation, that is Santa and I. Big news, Lewis set a date for Vintners and Valentine, March 3rd. Lewis, are we gonna rename this? Maybe something to do with like, maybe Valentine or maybe Wine Madness or something?
Very strongly about the brand.
Okay, all right.
I do have one date.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thursday, December 8th at 4 p.m. The college will be hosting its first in-person holiday party. And stay tuned for a more intimate holiday event. That will count as 8 to be determined. In a very short period.
Okay, thank you, Lewis.
Thank you.
George student, oh, and I'm sorry, Donna, NYCCT.
Yes. I started a report to you that is mostly pictures and just a little bit of summary from the event that the conference that we had in September. And then, of course, there's ACCT that's come up. So I didn't finish that report, but I will give you two reports at the December board meeting. So NYCCT had a very successful conference of their own, but because ACCT was also in New York City, there were a lot of the same people actually were there, and there were a lot of similar activities happening. NYCCT did host a reception for New York Community College trustees there, which was well attended, and thanks to advancement and Rob, we supplied 3 bottles of wine for a drawing, student produced wine. So I always love the opportunity to be able to promote our viticulture program, and it created a lot of buzz. So that was great. And other trustees seemed surprised that we shipped. And so some people were writing Gina's contact information down so that we could get those wines out to people. One of the promising aspects was that CUNY trustees have not been involved with trustees outside of their New York City parameters for decades, actually. Because it was in New York City, they co-hosted it. They did have Johanna, Douglas Fortier, our senior vice chancellor, co-open it with them, but they were the hosts. We invited them to our NYCCT events. They did come to our reception, not to the breakfast the next morning, but to the reception, and they are very receptive to working with the SUNY community colleges to see where there are areas of commonality that we can work together on. And two of the things came up, obviously advocacy and marketing came up as a possible opportunity. So look for more on that. And if anybody has any thoughts or contacts with CUNY, please let me know. This year at ACT was a little bit different for me because this was the first year we actually were paid members. And so I was officially a delegate, a voting delegate to the conference. So I attended the Senate legislative body, I guess, of ACCT. And it was just interesting to see how they functioned as well. New York State has quite a leadership role at the national level. And while I sort of knew that, it was interesting to see everybody there all as one group. So that was nice to see. And I will do a more in-depth report on some of the sessions that I went to, but I did want to say that I think our panel at the ACCT conference on the role of adult learners in supporting adult learners in rural communities panel that we presented went fairly well. The whole panel was a little convoluted because the 2 people from Southeast Kentucky Community College, the people who presented were not the people who were on the presentation. And Steve, I'm sorry you couldn't make it. I filled in as best I could. And we didn't have our workforce development person there, Todd Sloan. And the host of our panel, which was from the ACT,
Achieve the Dream.
Achieving the Dream. So they opted not to pay for the audio visual, so we couldn't show our slides. Maybe we should have had a handout like Southeast Kentucky by You Live and Learn. I think it was well represented. The two views, they had an actual facility. We talked about hubs being out there, and it was a pretty packed group. The comment I would make is that rural community colleges have finally achieved a very high visibility level at ACCT and at the national federal level. Finally, and so there were a number of sessions very directly targeted to it. I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to meet Sean Robbins who is heading up ACCT's rural community college efforts, but I know he was there and there were a lot of people talking about it. And the other topic that I would come back with is everyone seems to have moved from should we reconsider how we do our bookstore and providing coursework materials to we're not going to have a bookstore. That's a no-brainer. We're going to do some other things. And how quickly can you do it? So people have moved. There seems to be a much more nitty-gritty practical element to this. People are talking about the efficiencies, but also a whole list of positive ripple effects that happen when you are not reliant on textbooks alone. I think it's a subject for further discussion here. And there are a number of places who have done it in a number of different ways. So I think it's not a one solution fits all, but I do think it's not a question of should we do it? It's now a question of how we're going to do it. And that might be something that we as trustees might need to very seriously consider. That's my report.
Questions for Donna? All right, George, student court.
Yeah, it's a very brief report, and I think Sarah Whiffen covered half of it, and Trustee Schumacher covered the other half. So, but what I will follow up with on Trustee Schumacher's observation with the other trustees, the other student trustees. I highlighted, I think in my past report, just how much of an emphasis there is on supporting the online students by our student corp. They are not only doing it, but they're evolving. They're constantly changing. They've got complete support from Dr. Nye, which is evident because he actually gets on a call with them, you know, on it's a monthly or bi-weekly.
They started that based on a virtual copy I had last semester, and I'm gonna have another one this semester. So they've started up one for the students that are run through Danny Earl Crampton, and it's very, very helpful.
So there's not only a commitment to it, but what I've been observing is that they're ongoing, evolving how they're dealing with this new challenge. If there's any kind of an example of how we're preparing students for careers and being work ready, this is one of them. Adjusting, changing to the goal. It's been a joy to watch.
Okay, any questions? Comments? All right, then I would like to ask for a motion to move into executive session. This matter we're going to discuss is collective bargaining pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, Article 7, 105-E. We will return to regular session once we are done with the executive session. Can I have a motion? Jeff, thank you. Second, Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any oppositions? No oppositions. So I would like to